Hello, Hastings, and anyone else joining us tonight. Welcome back to the 2018 Hastings Candidate Forum presented by Hastings Community TV as well as the Hastings Area Chamber of Commerce. We are in round two, and in round two, we are going to hear from our candidates running for at-large City Council. Please join me in welcoming our three candidates, Ms. Lori Braucks, Mr. Tom Cherney, and Mr. Mark Vaughan. In this race are two seats, and we do have our two incumbents here. Ms. Lori Braucks is our incumbent candidate, as well as Mr. Vaughan is our second incumbent candidate. All right. So we'll start with you, Ms. Braucks, with the opening statement. You have 1 minute, and you can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'm Lori Braucks. I'm going to introduce myself briefly. I'm a 1997 graduate of Hastings Senior High School. I graduated from UW-Eau Claire, and I also have my law degree from William Mitchell College of Law. My family is here. My in-laws and my parents are here, so I'm very proud that they're here. I was last elected in 2014. I'm at the end of my first four-year term. I'm married to Tommy for 11 years, and I have two children, Jonathan and Grace. And tonight I'm here to talk with you about what I have done and what I will do. Both of the men to my left are honorable men and honorable opponents, but I look forward to sharing my view of what will make Hastings an even stronger place to live and work.
Thank you. Mr. Cherney, your turn for your opening statement. You have 1 minute and may start when you're ready.
Thanks a lot. Obviously, I'm Tom Cherney. Obviously, I'm not a politician. I've never done this before, and I'll tell you, it's absolutely amazing. And Lori's quite right. Anybody who contributes their time to this city deserves our honorable respect. It's just amazing. And that's how we started from the beginning, making the decision to run here. You can go through all my education, the jobs I've held. They're pretty extensive, and that's why I made the decision to pay back to this town. I got a wonderful family. The smartest thing I did is I married a girl from Vermilion, and Janet and I have 6 adult children, and I owe this town a lot. Extensive background, 27 years in the Air Force, 3 master's degree, which I found out doesn't mean a thing if you don't have wisdom in the first place. So that's me. What you see tonight is what you're going to get.
Thank you. And now for you, Mr. Vaughan, please provide your opening statement, and you may start when you're ready.
Thank you, Tom. My name is Mark Vaughan. My wife Beth and I are lifelong residents of Hastings. We were born and raised here. We went to school here. We left Hastings. We went over to Egan for a while to live there. But when we started our family, we said, let's come back home. We had a great experience here. We wanted our kids to have that same experience, if not a better experience. We got 3 girls that came through the program or through the schools in our community here. Mary's now a freshman up at the University of North Dakota. Martha and Molly are twins over at the high school as sophomores. Professionally, I work for cities. I started here at the city of Hastings. I went off to the city of Northfield, city of Apple Valley. Last 23 years, I've been over at the city of Egan. I manage enterprise funds, a civic arena, and a water park for the city. Personally, our family, we're involved in the community. We're active members of St. Philip's Lutheran Church. I'm lucky enough to be on the United Way board of Hastings. If there's any time left, our family tries to stay together. We try to go to a family trip or just enjoy Minnesota. Tonight, I look forward to this conversation. It's great to see this many people showing interest in this, and I really look forward to the next 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cherney, you get the honor of answering this first question. What is the biggest challenge facing Hastings, and how would you address it?
You know, I figured that was going to be one of your questions. I think we all hear about things that are addressed right here in Hastings. Transportation, of course, economics. They all tie together. Transportation, internal, external, building the city up, the tax base. The bottom line is they're all intermingled to one another. We just need to get going. Take a look at what we're doing, how we can do it better. I'm a doer. I've learned this in my past positions of multi-diverse organizations. I've had to run big units. The bottom line is you got to do things. You got to reach out to people. The biggest infrastructure you got in this town is people. You've got to tie it all together. We just have to get going and involve everybody. If you think government's going to do it all, guess what? It takes the business community. It takes the people out there. It takes private organizations, faith-based organizations. We should just get them tied together and move on.
Thank you. Mr. Vaughan, your turn with this one. What is the biggest challenge Hastings is facing, and how would you address it?
I think Tom talked about, there's really three big things right now. We got housing, transportation, and economic development. I think we'll probably see those questions, but I think the priority right now in this community is our housing. I think we need to really focus on that because I think it ties to the other two. We just got to be careful. Rooftops are expensive. You got to think about when we build a house, we're going to build a street, a sewer, a water line. We're going to get data coming in saying we have police, fire, we're going to need more. We got to be careful about growing too fast. I think we got to have sometimes an exit plan. What happens if our population drops? How do we back off on some of those services? Staff gives us great data on inventory. We know what's out there for housing. But we had a commissioner ask the other night at a planning commission. It was a great question. He says, do we have any data on what the people want, though? Because we know what the inventory is. That's a great question. I appreciate that commissioner asking that. But I think we need to be location focused. We got to look at what is the place to put housing, and then also what are the priorities, what are the trends. And I think right now we're hearing density a lot, so we get housing for everyone is what we're looking for.
Thank you. Ms. Braucks, your turn with this one. What is the biggest challenge facing Hastings, and how would you address it?
Well, I think Mr. Cherney and Mr. Vaughan have both addressed economic development fairly thoroughly, so I'm going to take a slightly different approach to the question, which is a short-term priority in Hastings is to address our water and our water system. And what we're doing about that right now is that we're doing a feasibility study, and we're looking at the addition of chlorine to the water and other disinfection options. And we're using a firm to do that by the name of Stantec. We're going to look at the costs and the benefits of each of the options and decide which one makes the best sense for Hastings. And we're doing a communication analysis. We're doing an analysis of how we get information out to residents quickly in these emergency type situations. And we're also leading an effort across the county to make sure that the Everbridge system, which is our reverse 911, is updated and has good information so that when we need to reach people, we can.
Thank you. Going on to the next question, and Mr. Vaughan, you'll be the first to answer this one. Please describe a time where you stood up for what you believed in, even though you knew it was not the popular decision.
That was recent. We had housing recently up at the Wallen development over there, and you know what? That was a challenge. That was probably one of the largest challenges I had as a council member because it fit all the rules to a degree, but we interpret rules different. Staff had said that a cluster development, some history here is the developer wanted to put a cluster development, meaning townhomes inside a single-family home development that's currently going on. It took a lot of work and a lot of research to find out that we had a difference of opinion. I believe I stood up for the residents saying that did not meet the cluster development concept. I think that we did the right thing for the residents because the residents are the ones that live here. That developer owns the land, but we also got to make sure that we're representing the people that live in that area. I think that was the hardest decision for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Braucks, allow me to repeat the question. Sure. Please describe a time where you stood up for what you believed in, even though you knew it was not the popular decision.
The biggest one that comes to mind, I've been the chair of the Public Safety Committee of the Council for 2 years, and the one that stands out in my mind that was the most difficult for me was a sex offender distance law that we sent through the committee process and also held several public meetings to talk about it. Because of my legal background and my understanding of the Constitution and just my personal beliefs, I didn't feel that that law was in line with the state constitution. And so I did lead the community through the process of looking at the options and discussing how the language would look. And we had a lot of community feedback from people in the neighborhood that really wanted to enact the law. And at the end, when we held the city council meeting, I did share my view that I didn't think it was a constitutional law and may in fact be challenged. And in fact, there was a challenge to a similar law in South St. Paul where the offender actually collected a lot of money from the city because they deemed it unconstitutional. So that was a difficult situation, but I feel that I held my ground for good reason.
Thank you. And Mr. Cherney, your turn with this one, and please allow me to repeat it. Please describe a time where you stood up for what you believed in, even though you knew it was not the popular decision.
Thank you, Tom. Mine's a little bit different. Mine's in reverse. I had to make a decision, being in the Air Force, to say no to about 4 general officers concerning the people who worked with me. It was an early morning, and I worked in a pretty classified operation, and they made a mistake. The order was given, fire all the officers and fire all the non-commissioned officers, a total of 12 people. It was 6 o'clock in the morning because I remember this explicitly. I looked at him straight in the eye and said, "I'm in charge, you fire me." And he says, "You weren't here." I said, "That's exactly why. If you want them fired, you fire them, but you fire me first." Which meant probably I'd be blowing up beach balls in Iceland someplace.
Great way to end that. I do have to stop there.
Okay.
Next question. Ms. Braucks, your turn to go on this. In your opinion, how can the city balance reasonable taxation while still providing strong quality of life services?
When we go through the budget cycle every year, we take this into consideration, and we have to take into consideration both the impact of the tax rate on businesses and the impact of the tax rate on residences. And so we're balancing the needs of each department along with, and their wants and desires to support their staff, along with the ability to keep the tax rate down. So in the last 4 years, the value of the homes in Hastings has gone up increasingly. And our goal on the Finance Committee has been to lower the tax rate so we don't take full advantage of the fact that people's housing values are going up. We try to push the tax rate down, even though we have some extra room to work with because the market is increasing. So our goal is always to spend a good amount of the money on public safety, which we feel is important. So we spend about 33% of our budget on public safety, and we've increased our infrastructure and our expenditure on roads and sewers, and we have a lot of things to take care of.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Cherney, in your opinion, how can the city balance reasonable taxation while still providing strong quality of life services?
It's back to the budgets. At the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, I think I had a total budget of about $13 million. You have to take a look at every specific action. If you're going to be in charge of anything, you have to get down in the dirt and make sure that you have all the information. You can't do it yourself. There's a lot of talent in this town. There's a lot of businessmen who are retired. There's a lot of people who know what they're talking about. Have a commission that does nothing but look at this budget before it becomes part of the process going through the government. Sit down and talk with the department heads. Figure out where you're at and see how you can build different parts of your budget. What we did, basically, I went to every director and said, I'm going to take 10% of your budget, and we're going to put it over here, and we're going to take and make sure that if something does come up, and if not, we'll give it back the back of the way. So in other words, you got to grease the skids. It's not how much tax you get, it's how much you spend.
Thank you. Mr. Vaughan, in your opinion, how can the city balance reasonable taxation while still providing strong quality of life services?
I think these two already hit on the big picture of it. We struggle with this every year when we go through the budget cycle. I think we should get to a 2-year budget cycle so we can plan out a little bit. I want to specifically talk about economic development because that's a portion of this budget. It's a broad subject. It's service. It's filling storefronts and getting good paying jobs. Think about what we say. People say we should be calling people to fill up the storefront. I would use caution. I want to let people know we don't direct staff to do that because the first question is going to be, what incentive do you have for me? And we got to be careful because we are taxpayers too. We start giving away taxes, someone else has to pick up that balance. So I would caution people of that. The best thing we could do is support ourselves. Residents to residents, business to business. We need to keep as much as we can in this community. And I think that's the challenge that we all work together to get this budget up to acceptable. I think we also got to be realistic. We can't have everything at one time.
Thank you. Mr. Cherney, you get to be the first with the closing statement. You have 1 minute, and please tell Hastings why they should vote for you.
First of all, I'm going to tell you why I'm running. I love this town. This is our home. I've been here 16 years, and trust me, there's no other place like it. There isn't a day go by, Janet and I don't thank God that we live here. The people are great. I've walked this city. I walked the entire city in the last 90 days. And I'm going to tell you right now, what wonderful people. Out of this entire town, only one individual was less than accepting, okay? And he was probably having a bad day. This is a giving town. It's my turn to give back. I promise I work hard. Every job I've had, I focused on a purpose. I love this town. And that's why I'm sitting up here going, this is what you see is what you get. I work hard no matter what I do. And I love this place. Way beyond I can really articulate to you. We're so lucky to live here. And the people here are fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. Cherney. Mr. Vaughan, your closing statement, please. Please tell Hastings why they should vote for you.
All right. Thank you, Tom. And thank you to Hastings TV. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting this opportunity. I tell you what, I've had a great experience representing you for the last 4 years as an elected official. I've learned a lot. I've really approached this with a creative mind and an open mind. I believe we've made great strides at keeping our community strong, and I think we're systematically moving forward. I hope the residents understand I got a vision, I got a purpose, but really I got experience. I've been doing this for 4 years, but before that I volunteered for 12 years for the city on all of our commissions of planning, parks and recreation, and charter. I think I've earned it, and I hope that you choose to vote for me again to represent you for another term. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughan. And finally, with you, Ms. Braucks, please provide your closing statement and tell Hastings why they should vote for you.
Thank you. One thing I didn't mention in my opening statement is that I am privately employed, and I am privately employed by Thomson Reuters. And I think there's an advantage and a different perspective that I bring because I'm not in the full-time day-to-day government work job. So I think I bring that. I also ask a lot of questions. Whenever we have an issue that comes up before the City Council, I've shown that I'm curious and I'm willing to research and look at the facts. I'm also willing to ask questions and to understand all the issues before we vote on them. And that kind of ties into my job as well. Because I'm a data analysis person, I am interested in finding out the facts and figuring out what it is that we're dealing with. I would just ask that you would consider me. I'm at the end of my first term. I feel that I've done a good job. I've tried to do it with honesty and integrity. I've tried to listen to people, and I feel like I'm just getting started.
Thank you. And Mr. Cherney. Well, I'm sorry, everybody went, didn't they?
Yeah.
I guess I just wanted to
I
hear
got
from you
more,
again. I
trust
want to hear
me.
more about
Yeah.
beach balls.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about beach balls. I apologize. I keep wanting to hear more. Thank you all three for participating in this tonight's forum. How about a round of applause for our candidates? All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break and get ready for our mayoral candidates. And so we'll be back very shortly. Thank you. Jeez.